Alright, I'm going to show you today how I make one of my favorite, actually two of my favorite wax carving tools. This is one of them, and I'll explain a little bit more as we go along. It's got a scraper on one side and a carving tool on the other. And then here's the other one. It's got a little bit wider scraper. And then this is a sharp, kind of a knife edge. I use both of these primarily all the time when I'm carving wax. So I'll show you how I make those out of tools that I pick up relatively cheaply. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to just kind of mark with a Sharpie how I want this tool to be shaped. This one is going to be a scraping end. This one is going to be a sharp knife end. And then this one I've already trimmed down a little bit, but I'll show you how I finish it. This is going to be my carving tool, and this is going to be my scraping tool as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off all of this excess and then go in and file and sand the tool to get the tool where I want it to be. If you don't have a belt sander, this works very well to get the tool down to the shape that you want it in. And then we can kind of finalize and file a little bit more after that, but a grinding wheel works real well. Okay, once I get the pieces roughed out a little bit, the shape that I want, now I can go in and kind of fine tune them a little bit. What I'll do is I will take a snap-on sanding disc, and the thing I like about these is you can load them up this way or this way, and I'm going to load it up this way so that I can work like this. Just kind of keeping an eye and taking out the heavy scratches. Just kind of getting it into a little bit more of the shape that I want. Now on this tool, I want it to bend a little bit, so I'm going to take these pliers, and what they are is on one side they're half round, on the other side they're flat. So I'm going to take them and just grab that and just slowly bend it a little bit. I don't need it a whole bunch, just a little bit, because when I use this tool, I like to scrape with it this way, and it works a lot easier if it's just got a little bit of a bend to it. So you can see that there's just a little bit of a bend to it, but that's about how I like it. So continue. I got it just about the shape that I want it. I'm just going to take off all the kind of the sharp edges. And then on the back side, I'm going to take this tip and I'm going to turn it into a sharpened edge here. So There we go. If you look real close, you can see that that is pretty sharp right there. So that will work good for scraping. You can see it's just, I'm not using much pressure at all, but it's going in there and scraping pretty good. So this end is done. This end, I want it kind of smooth and round, so I'm going to work it a little bit, but I'm also going to doctor this edge a little bit. So let me get this into shape here. These sanding discs work really good, and the thing I like about them is you can just pull them off, put on another one real quick, and you're back to work. Okay, on this tool, the very tip of it, I'm going to trim back some. Let me show you. I'm going to take it and cut a little bit out of here and then up and away. So, and I'll explain to you why I'm doing this once I get it cut off. So, see what it's going on there. On this one, I'm going to turn this snapping disc around and work it this way. Okay, I've got it close to the shape that I want. I'm actually going to take a cylinder burr, a big cylinder burr, and trim a little bit more. Okay, and I keep some of these burrs around. Once they get dull, when I'm not using them as much on silver anymore, then I transfer them over to my metal cutting burrs, just so that I don't dull up my silver burrs. That one's I just use particularly for metal. I'm going to come in with a little bit of sandpaper. And sand the back side of this. Now you can see the shape that is starting to take on. It's very fine tipped, and it's cut away on the back side. That's for getting into very fine areas and doing some very micro carving. Just going over it now and just getting out of the majority of the big scratches out. And that's about how I want it. So that way when I'm working in wax, I can actually get in and do some very fine carving with that tip, but also this backside where it's rounded, I can get in there and scrape wax with that edge, and it will give it a rounded edge. Like if I'm working on something that I want the edge to be not just sharp but rounded, I can actually get in there with this and scrape it this way with this, and you can kind of see how it's just kind of rounding off that edge. That's what I use the back side of that for, but the very tip is very sharp. I can get in and do some very fine work with that. Again, the other side, I got this sharpened so I can go in and do some scraping with this tool. So this is one of my favorite tools to use. And again, you can pick up a whole set of these tools at like Harbor Freight or some of the discount tool houses for less than $10. And this one here is, I'm going to it's turned into a cutter. It's going to have a cutting edge on both sides. So I'm just going to kind of round it. It's going to be more of a spear shape, but it's going to have a sharp cutting edge on both sides. And I'll use this for the heavy work of carving. When I want to get in and trim, it works really well. I'm just kind of looking this. This is starting to get a little dull. Let me grab another one. Snap it on. That's why they call them a snap-on disc. Now I'll continue working this into the shape that I want it. You can see this is more of a spear shape, and it's got a cutting edge on both sides. It's not as fine as that other one, but this one I'll do the heavy scraping and carving of the wax. So this is my roughing cutter, and then the other one would be for more of the fine detail. Now on this side, I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the other. I'm going to take and bend it a little bit because I want this to be a scraper as well. The other one was a little finer scraper. This one is a thicker scraper. And again, so I'm just going to go in and take off some of the heavy-duty scratches. And again, on this back side, I'm going to sharpen that up and turn it into a cutter. Let me grab a sandpaper. Grab some sandpaper and go in on this back side and just kind of smooth that out a little bit as well. Use sandpaper, or you can use a Kratex wheel as well. These work really well for taking out scratches, smoothing things and making them nice. I'll finish it up with sandpaper. Okay. Now I'll go in with my snap-on disc and sharpen up that edge. Okay, so now this is a good scraper as well. This one's a little thicker than the other one. It's for doing heavier duty. Again, this is for doing heavy cutting. This is for doing heavy scraping. The other one is for doing more of the fine work. So both of them work very well, and we'll get the job done. So again, this is my heavy tool for going in and doing some just heavy-duty cutting. Cuts real well. See, it just kind of goes right through the wax pretty good. And again, this is my heavy-duty scraper for just scraping wax. It just cuts through real good. And then this tool is for doing the fine detail, kind of getting in and just cutting and cleaning up, stuff like that. And again, this side as well is for doing some of the finer details. So here's two tools that are very handy. And again, you can pick up half a dozen of these tools for less than $10 at some of the discount tool stores. And all it does is just a little bit of modification, and they work really well. The neat thing about these tools is if they get dull, you can just sharpen them either on a whetstone or just running them across some 600 grit sandpaper, and that brings that edge right back to them, makes them sharp, more than sharp enough for wax. And these things as well, sometimes I'll even work them in silver. If I got an area in my silver where I need to get in, a real tight area, I'll pull out my wax tool sometimes and do that as well. Same thing on this end. You can just drag it across the sandpaper, and that sharpens up that cutting edge. Same thing on both of these bigger tools. The same thing. You just run them across the sandpaper and you can bring the edge right back. They don't get dull very often because you're only cutting wax with them, but sometimes they will, just kind of banging together, rubbing upon one another. Sometimes they'll lose their edge, so it doesn't take much to bring their edge back. And as well, you can use your whetstone to sharpen these tools up. And again, nice and sharp. They just work good. Just cuts through wax like butter. And again, I show you on this end here, if you've got like a sharp edge, this side here, you can actually just kind of come in and you can round off your edges, and it makes them real nice. That's why I like to keep that edge there sharp as well, just because you can go in and round things off as well. So there you go. Two handy wax tools that once you make them, and you can adjust them to your own liking, but once you make them, you'll be happy you did, and you'll never be without them.